Yo, 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 yo. Hey, yo. I believe I'm live. Please receive me into your device's screen. Right. Mic check, mic check. Sound check, sound check. Hi Mihai, hi Matt. Hi everybody else. This one's gonna be fucking awful. We're doing pull requests. I've been massively lagging behind on these, so I'm just going to try and pick off as many as I can. If you've been watching the pull requests, I have not announced Haymarker. I have not announced anything on Twitter. Yols is welcome. I have no idea how long the stream is going to last. Essentially, the baby might stop it at any moment, so... sorry, people who didn't see this live. Yes, anybody keeping an eye on the pull requests will very well know I am quite behind. And they've slowly been growing and growing and growing. So we have 31 now. The way that I would like to be doing this is I want to have a nice triage system. I used to be able to deal with pull requests pretty much exactly as they came in. But unfortunately we have so many now that I don't have enough time to deal with them all exactly as they arrive. So real-time pull requests is what we used to have. The way that I would like to deal with things now, because obviously I can't just do everything every time they come up. So I have to have some sort of triaging system, but what I wanted to do was triage so that things that are really easy and quick to merge can get merged quickly, even though they're newer than older ones. Hi Steve. But there's obviously going to be pull requests that are going to take a bit more time, so I'm going to have to allocate time to go and do that sort of stuff. And what I wanted to have was a system where I would be able to pick them off gradually over time and give a bit more priority to things that have been stuck around for a while. Unfortunately, it's not been the case because, there were two main reasons. The first one was because I was working on Benthos version 4, so knowing that there was going to be a huge amount of refactoring and stuff at play, I didn't want to merge too many things that were going to require a lot of work, because it's better to do them after v4 so that when we do the reworking, we can reflect the new APIs and stuff. But obviously that's been done for a while now, and so what's my excuse now? Well, obviously I had a baby, so that was a bigger block in the road. But my baby is dealt with. We solved that problem, and now I've got a bit of time to allocate towards pull requests. So this morning I looked at this CockroachDB one that has been hanging around for a long time. We're almost at a year on this one. And there was nothing really wrong with this pull request, just so people can watch it. It kind of took a while to grow a bit, but essentially this is just the CockroachDB change feed. And under the hood it's doing a query and then just consuming the rows one by one. Very, very similar to the new SQL inputs, except it's assumed that it's going to be a continuous thing. So when we run out of rows, we will execute the query again on like a timer thing. I'll be honest, I didn't really understand what this was actually doing originally, and I've had to do a little bit of reading up on it. This morning I did a bit more, and what I essentially did is I've made a branch now where I've kind of refactored this a little bit so it looks a little bit more like the other SQL inputs, and simplified some of the shutdown logic. Also fixed the integration tests. So this one is on a branch. The reason why I haven't just merged it as is because I need to put a bit more time into understanding how we're actually going to have delivery guarantees and things, because there's a bit of an assumption here that we're supposed to be caching our position in the change feed, but I don't really understand how that works yet, so I don't want to merge stuff until we know exactly what our delivery guarantees actually are. I imagine with a lot of the oh, hi, more people. Wow, we've got quite a lot of people in the chat today. This obviously is a good time of the day to do these things. But yeah, the way that we do delivery guarantees here with a lot of change data capture is a bit dodge, and I don't like dodge in Benthos land. I like to be very explicit about when we do and don't guarantee things. So I've parked it for a bit. I put it on a branch so that if Dan wants to continue, it's been a long time, so I wouldn't expect to just jump straight back into this. But I basically left a comment of if he wants to take a look at the refactor and then re-adopt it, then he's welcome to. Otherwise, I'll get around to it at some point. So now we can move on to the next one of 31 pull requests, which is this TLS functionality one. So again, this is a case where I basically wanted to refactor these components. This isn't a massive, complicated feature. It's fairly straightforward. So this should have, in theory, been very quick to merge. We're basically adding the ability to, on the socket server input, host TLS connections, which is TCP, but we're making it an explicit option. One thing that I was wondering originally, I remember, was whether or not we could just have Unix TCP and UDP as the options, and then maybe if you specify certificates, then that's what we would go for. I don't know whether that's reasonable, but in either case it's perfectly fine to add a TLS option. I might have a go at merging this one, so we're gonna have to resolve some conflicts. Oh no, the files got moved. Oh, that's right, they did, they got moved. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do a squash merge anyway, but can I just fetch this branch? Because the important thing, I wish this was easier from GitHub. But unfortunately, it's not very easy from GitHub, but I want to get the exact author so that I can properly attribute. So this is the author. So when I do a dodgy merge, I can just make sure I've properly captured the author's name. I'm just gonna stick it, I don't know where else to paste this. I'm gonna stick it there for now. Hopefully I'll catch that on the diff. Right, let's make a new branch for this, and let's call it socket server TLS. And then what I'm gonna do is one thing I'm interested in is, can we just get a general TLS config? We need specifically a TLS.certificate. We end up with a TLS config. Is that not stuff that we can cover with the general purpose TLS thing? Where do I have that? Right, okay, I see the issue. Yeah, okay, I'm going to match what we've got on the HTTP side, which is just you specify cert file and a key file. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Right, I'm literally just going to do copy paste here, everyone. Because it's just easier than doing a weird merge and solving all the conflicts. Input socket server. I'm going to put the TLS stuff at the bottom, so it's kind of out of the way. And I'm going to paste. And this is now invalid. Just got it. So yeah, one of the reasons why this would have been stuck in limbo for so long is because we completely changed how configuration is defined for components, and socket server was one of the candidates for transitioning. So create self-signed certificate. This is the same. This maybe somebody needs to check this out. I'm not very crypto savvy. I definitely do feel intimidated when I look at anything to do with certificates that we're implementing ourselves. Basically, what we're going to be doing, if we were to merge this pull request exactly as is effectively in configuration you'd specify key and certificate file, and if you don't specify either, this will fall back and generate a self-signed certificate. I'm not going to merge that as is, because that seems a bit risky, because you could accidentally deploy Benthos with self-signed certs and not realize. I think I would rather that be an explicit thing defined in the config somehow. What I might do is I might just merge this without the self-signed certificates to begin with. And we'll just error out. How have I done this for the HTTP stuff? Oh, okay, we literally call. Okay, how does this work? What are you doing with that? Certificate and key file. Oh, okay, same thing. All right. Okay, I'm happy with it. What else do I need to copy paste? This bit with linting error. We'll work out what that is in a minute. Where do we do our switch? We do it here. Oh, I do use the old style. Oh, okay, that's rather annoying. I'm gonna have to refactor this at some point then. But that's fine. What was it? Cert file first, and then key file. Do we have an output socket server? No. No, we don't. Okay, right. Okay, last thing is we need to put the docs in. I'm going to get rid of this because we already list all the options. And we've got these two new fields, both strings. I'm going to make it explicit that these have a default of an empty string. And I think what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm just going to make it so that you have to specify a certificate and key, otherwise we throw an error. So now that compiles and is fine. So an ineffective assignment to because of that. There we go. That's a good lint, that is. George says, I was not told about no stream. WinG. Actually, I think if you subscribe to the channel, you get a notification, so maybe you just outed yourself there as scum. If you're watching the stream and you haven't subscribed, oh my God, I don't know what to do anymore. I do not know what to do anymore. Unless I can find out your address and make a physical presence in your life, I don't know what more I can do. Please, please, please give me that like and subscribe. I'm desperate to get 1,000 subs. And then I'll finally quit. But until then, I'll just have to keep streaming. Yeah, I think I'm... should I get rid of this? We probably need it for our unit tests, I'm guessing. We do... Where are we doing TLS? We must have tests. Oh, we don't because I haven't copy-pasted them yet. Obviously we don't if I haven't copy-pasted. Ah, God, I love copy-paste. Copy-paste is a solid theme in the Benthos pull requests. Both from my perspective and the perspective of many pull request authors. George says he has subscribed and clicked the bell. I've also sent you my firstborn. Didn't ask for that. I definitely didn't ask for that. Matt says he just unsubbed so I could sub. You're welcome. Thank you for that. That actually does... That might actually help me. Because it's activity. Maybe YouTube... I don't know. I don't know how YouTube works. Maybe that's going to get me something. George says didn't get a notification. Oh, I did get a notification. Oh, George didn't know there was a stream. Oh, poor George. Oh, poor George didn't know there was a stream. Oh. Hi, Harry. Oh, snap, we got Harry. Damn. How's life, Harry? So I worked with Harry once upon a time. Right, so the way that we do configs is different now. Yeah, these tests rely on self-signed certs, so I'm going to have to... I'm probably going to copy-paste the self-signed cert bit here and just make it so that this is part of the unit test suite and not actual functionality, and then maybe one day if we change our minds we can integrate it as functionality. I think I can hear my baby getting ever closer, which means he might be going for a nap. I'm gonna have to be quiet. Right, so I'm gonna move this to the top now. Is it valid to have a non-empty cert but an empty key? It is, isn't it? Because you can have a non... Yeah, I think that might be valid. Oh, I mean, you'll still get an error if it's invalid anyway. But if they're both empty, return nil errors. For TLS connections, a file must be specified. Oh, you can't just return nil. Blair. Whatever. That'll do. Okay, whatever, just massively shorten that. Is it even worth having its own function? I don't know. If you're anywhere near Berkshire, we could hang out one day. Maybe give me a ping on LinkedIn, or if you're on the are you on the Discord or anything? Or anybody else in the Berkshire area, feel free to hit me up. I'll talk to you about how you can best subscribe. What are we doing here? We're generating a certificate. So I need a way of injecting the certificate into my test doohickey. Because I really can't be bothered to what's the quickest way of making a self-signed certificate and then having it be in a file? So we already pull out our actual thing. Oh no, that's not good. Okay, I'll tell you what. So this is currently not exported, but the test is in its own test package because we do imports that we don't want to do. So what I might... pull the address out that way. Okay, I'll deal with this stuff later. For now, I need to work out how I'm going to inject or force a self-signed certificate. I might enable it, I'll just make an explicit config thing. Or will I? So I can either make the certificates and then just store them as files, or yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll use the I'll enable the self-signed certificates. It'll be pretty convenient in general anyway. What I'll just do is self-signed certs equals true, and then let's add that. I might actually put this in its own TLS namespace. Since it's only valid when the socket type is TLS anyway. So all of these defaults are fine, empty, empty, false. And we'll put a stupid comment. This is all going to go away eventually because we're not going to do struct-based configs, but I really can't be bothered to deal with this right now. Contains config for TLS. It's good enough for me. I'll tell you what, it's probably easiest for me to just re-copy paste this because I'm introducing all that functionality back. Okay, if sconf self-signed, so if we haven't explicitly enabled self-signed certificates, then what we'll do is we'll return an error. Must specify either a certificate file or enable self-signed. Idiot. That'll do for now. I'll fix the test in a minute. I need to update the documentation because this will have changed now. So we've got docs field object TLS, specify TLS specific. Valid when the network is set to TLS. And what we have to specify with children, that's the way to do it. Self-signed. Okay. I think we're good on that front. Now I need to rework this stuff. To work with the new message types. So basically there's been some refactoring internally about how to create messages and all that stuff. So since that stuff has changed, I now have to rework the tests to reflect that. And looks like that's all I actually needed to do. And now I can delete this little copy paste jobby here. Right, let's see if it runs. Okay, that passed. Do I trust it? Let's see what the coverage is. We're obviously not going to have covered reading certificates from file, but I trust load x509 key pair. I trust that with my life, frankly. My laptop is churning away. Looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay, cool. I think that's fine as long as the documentation generates okay. And then we can add the socket server input now supports TLS as a type. And then what I'll do is rather than merge the pull request via GitHub and deal with all that messiness, I'm just going to commit this as is and set Ian Flynn as the author. And then I'll just close the pull request. It's just easier that way for everybody involved. Copy this. Just a quick diff of the documentation, make sure it looks right. Looks fine. Ah! I'm going to push this upstream to GitHub and just see if the CI is happy. And that's something that I don't always do. Naughty me. And there are consequences. Consequences. Okay, so potentially that's done. Pretty cool. One pull request done. So we've got another one here, allow multiple docs in stream file. So I have looked at this one already. Basically the idea here is when you've got a directory of stream configs, you're running Benthos in streams mode, so there could be multiple streams running. The idea here is that if you've specified multiple streams in a single file, they'll all be created. That's actually quite scary to me, because that actually has a lot of implications, specifically around, even if you parse out all those documents and you run them, what do you call the stream? And some of that's already acknowledged in the main comment here, but then other stuff like how does linting work, because that's going to be a huge amount of effort. So I'm not entirely sure this is going to be particularly easy. There's a lot of conflicts as well. Yeah, this looks a little bit stale. And the implementation, I have already looked through this and it looked okay, but it only really scratches the surface because we're not dealing with all the linting and stuff as well. There's also no, so I mean, if we were going to do this, then what about config unit tests and stuff like that? How would they work? It just adds a lot of confusion. It's a lot easier to just not support multiple docs. But one thing is for sure, I am not going to work on this right now. I'm just going to basically hey, you still interested in this PR? Question mark. I think, how do I word this? This is like one of the major difficulties in pull requests. How do you word things in a way where everybody's happy, nobody feels bad? Because ultimately the work's fine, it's just there's things that need to be thought through, I think, before we can realistically merge this. I think that's probably a good thing to write down, isn't it? I think realistically, before we could consider supporting this, we'd need to have a clear answer around linting and config unit tests for these multi-document files. It's quite a large undertaking, as there's lots of moving parts. Leave it at that. Because I mean, if there's interest there, it's something that, you know, I'm not against supporting eventually, but I'm not going to be able to focus on that. I've got way too much on my plate already. This is another one that's quite stale. Add option for idempotent Kafka producer. So I already answered this one and haven't really made a conclusion here. Basically, if a field is being added called idempotent producer, and literally we just set a config to true. That's my baby making noise in the background. Mummy is trying to put him to sleep for a nap. Should I get involved? I might need to get involved, but I will remain on standby for now. I'm watching him on the camera. So yeah, this one's a bit dodgy because you can enable an idempotent producer, but what does that actually mean? And I definitely could not merge this as it currently is, because in the description of that field it says ensure that exactly one copy of each message is written by the Kafka producer client. That is not the case if you set this to true. What it will do is it will set transactions on. Oh, I think my baby might have teething pains. Oh, he's got a poorly mouth. Yeah, okay, I'm just going to pause the stream for a few minutes. I will probably be back. Maybe. Give me 10. Right, I'm back. Sorry about that. My fingers have been chewed on for a few minutes. Baby gave me a smile. And then I got the fuck out and left mum to it. We'll see how that goes. Otherwise we'll have to escalate. Maybe the cow poll. Definitely some chew toys, but cross those bridges when we get there. A bit of a chew might be enough. Right, yeah, so one of the major issues here is just that the documentation is misleading. But other than that, I'm not entirely sure what the value is of having idempotent producers here, because it wouldn't really guarantee much in the way of anything, as far as I'm aware. My understanding of Kafka transactions is that in order to support that properly, we would have to have a transaction ID that is something a user could specify. So yeah, I've left this as is because basically I can't merge it as it currently is, and I want to understand it more before I do anything. Somebody else has chimed in, Alex, but yeah, they say this is fairly important, especially considering the default is true since Kafka 3.0. I'm not entirely sure what the implications are around it. If you're fully in the know of Kafka transactions and you've got an opinion on this, maybe chime in on this pull request, because as it is, I'm not going to touch it. I think it's very risky to tell people things like exactly once in this context, because it's very rarely a real guarantee, and you're potentially misleading people into doing odd things. This is another one that's been stuck for a little bit, this OpenSearch sync. Again, this one's a bit of a challenge. So this is a little bit annoying, frankly, for me, and I think a lot of people, is this whole OpenSearch and Elasticsearch fork. I really wish they could all live together in harmony. George asks, there's no such thing as idempotent producers. Conceptually, there's idempotent processing, or am I losing my mind? There is, if you think of it in terms of, like if you think of a Kafka partition as like a cache, it's a log of a certain window of time, and it's a cache. If you've given transaction IDs to everything, and then you promise, you pinky swear when you consume that thing, you're going to collapse duplicates, then you could consider that cache as, exactly once, because you have all the information within it to make sure that you haven't duplicated stuff. But the problem is the consumer has to also be aware of transactions. So if you've got a daisy chain of services reading and writing from Kafka, and they're all in agreement of what transactions are, then you're technically doing exactly once consumption and production. And therefore you could, in certain circumstances, obviously it depends on what you're specifically doing, but I think in technical terms, as long as the processing is local, then, and you're not calling out to any other third-party services or anything, then you could consider what happens within that consumption exactly once. But yeah, it's a bit of a dubious claim. It's a bit of an odd one. If you're reading from Kafka and writing to Kafka, though, I think it's meaningful. Like a lot of services will consume a stream of data or multiple streams of data, and then they'll produce side effects as another topic. So you imagine it's like a running counter. And if you've taken all the logic of your transactions and you also apply that to writing the data out, then yeah, you could consider that resulting stream to also be exactly once processed, because any duplicate calculations are all going to be associated with transactions that are duplicate or whatever, is my understanding. But obviously it's all based on assumptions. Definitely no value in terms of exactly once processing for us to add that field into Benthos, because you would at the very least, you need to be able to specify transaction ID. We could potentially have something really cool there, though, because if you can specify transaction ID that comes from a different service, then you could potentially use Benthos to marry an ID-based deduplicated stream from somewhere, where, you know, if each message has an ID, then you can deduplicate it downstream. You could marry that with Kafka transactions, and it could act as the bridge that kind of carries the exactly once enus down the thing. But I don't like calling it exactly once, because it's not really. Like you said, it's not really a thing. So yeah, OpenSearch. Let's go back to this. So we've got an Elasticsearch input. We've got an Elasticsearch output. I don't think we've got an input yet. And that's quite an old component. So it uses very old APIs and things. And now Amazon has gone along and they've made OpenSearch as a response to Elasticsearch getting a bit dodge, I think is the words that they used. I think their blog post was just, Elasticsearch has gone dodge, we're making OpenSearch now. And what's really annoying is they're not going to be maintaining compatibility. So OpenSearch is going to need, and does need now, as far as I'm aware, its own client libraries, which means Benthos now needs to have both an Elasticsearch and an OpenSearch output in order to support both. That's annoying. But also now I need to go and read up on what those incompatibilities are, because I'm pretty sure somebody can use the Elasticsearch output with AWS currently, because it was supported before. So unless they're going to cut off all those people, then it's obviously going to still happen. I'm honestly not really sure what the benefit is of all the work that is encompassed within this pull request. I'm not really sure what the immediate benefit is to Benthos users. I'm sure there is one though. However, the other problem is that because the Elasticsearch component is very old, it meant that when this pull request was opened and they did a copy-paste jobby, we've essentially duplicated a ton of old code that's very stale and is going to need refactoring anyway. So yes, at some point I'm going to have to make some effort. Clearly, I'm going to have to take this over the finish line, because it's not getting there on its own. But I've been leaving this on the back burner for now, because the whole situation is very frustrating, and it's just going to require a substantial amount of effort, because it's not a small component either. It's quite a big component, because there's lots of different code paths depending on what sort of thing you're doing. Yeah, very annoying. What I might do is I might refactor, if I remember correctly, your phone until 7. After that, it's anyone's guess. It's recent versions of diversion of the aren't compatible anymore. Yeah. So I think right now we're 7 is what we say we support up to. So yeah, we're going to have to do this at some point. But what I think might be a better approach, because this is just a copy paste jobby, I'm not gonna dedicate my time to refactoring the same component twice. Effectively, I would rather do the Elasticsearch component right now, and then once that's refactored, just say, hey, you know, it's ready for a new copy paste if you want to do that, and then just apply your changes. Because I mean, I'd be surprised if there's much different between the two in terms of how the client libraries are being used. It's a different client library. Oh, actually, looking at it, there might be quite a few things that are different. Huh. Yeah, I'll have to see. Also, the other thing, the elephant in the room here, is that the Elasticsearch output supports Amazon, but it's kind of like an add-on. So you could have a version of Benthos that doesn't include any of the Amazon client libraries, which are huge, and just build that. Or you could build it and AWS support, which basically just adds AWS credentials on top of the HTTP calls. And it looks like here they're all jumbled together. So I'm not sure how badly they're all mixed in. It could be real bad. I don't know. But that seems a bit naughty as well, because if Amazon are trying to convince us this is supposed to be a independent real open source version of Elasticsearch, then that's not a good start. But anyway, I'm not going to deal with this right now. Right, so the next one is a JavaScript processor. Woo! So this is actually a really fun one. This is really cool. Essentially, this is a processor that just runs JavaScript, which is badass. That's obviously quite a big component. So if you look at the code here, I've already had a skim through it. It looks fine at a glance, but it's it's a component. It's about 200 lines of code, and there's a accompanying file for the actual virtual machine and managing that. That all looks fine. I think there was some bits that I wanted to make adjustments to. However, the difficulty in a pull request like this, if you're wondering why things like this take so long, is because this has got a massive exposure to users. So basically, this isn't just like something that's underneath the surface making a bunch of changes. This is something that users are going to interact with directly, and users are going to be expected to understand how this component works, and why they'd use it, all that stuff, and understand how to write JavaScript that's going to execute with this, and understand how to modify Benthos messages with that JavaScript, because obviously we're going to have to support an API, which they've already done a fairly decent job of representing here. Kind of so if you've used the awk Benthos processor, then it will be kind of similar to that. But yeah, we've got like functions called setRoot and stuff like that. So there's quite a large surface area for user interaction, and all of that has to be user friendly. And it also needs to be well documented. So that's why this has kind of been left a bit, because I'm quite happy to merge this as like an experimental feature, even if the actual execution looks like it maybe needs a bit of expansion or something. But the thing I don't want to do is I don't just want to merge this and invite people to use it if it's not well described, and that therefore means I have to understand exactly how this thing works so that I can document it properly. I'm not sure realistically how likely I am to get this done in the next half an hour or so. I feel bad though, because I said I was gonna work on this a while ago, and it just kept getting I kept kicking that can down the road. Look, this is what I said in August of 2022. Hey, this is awesome. It might take me a little while to dig into the implementation properly, but at a glance, it looks great, and this is going to be super powerful. So I made it sound like I was going to get right on it. And then I had a little performance question. There's been some conversation around JavaScript here, which is kind of not necessarily relevant to the overall thing. I might stick this on a branch and play around with it now. George asks, yeah, this is a good question. Is this JavaScript and any other language implementation superseded by the WASM processor? So I would actually... So we've got a WASM processor where you can execute arbitrary WebAssembly, which can obviously be done from a myriad of different languages. I would not necessarily say that means that a JavaScript processor or a Python processor, if we can add one of them, is not worth doing anymore. The main reason why is because WebAssembly is really cool and really great, but from a usability perspective, it's an absolute shit show, I'm sorry to say. Like the WASM processor for Benthos, I mean, we can look at it now. Like I've tried my best, but you imagine somebody comes along and says, hey, I really want to use the WebAssembly processor. I'm going to write my WebAssembly in C. How do I do that? It's a completely different question to if somebody asks, how do I do it in Go or Rust or Zig or any of the other languages? And that's why it's a pain, because this is supposed to be a processor that's abstracted away from the language, but in actual fact, in order for me to get users to use this, I need to basically make documentation that's tailored for each specific language. And that's mostly just down to the fact that passing strings to and from a WebAssembly program is really non-trivial, because you have to deal with allocations and different language execution runtimes for WebAssembly deal with allocations differently, and it gets messy because it depends on what the generated WASM compiler does. So, for example, the Rust WASM compiler wants to deal with allocations and strings in a certain way. The Go one does it differently because it's got a GC and all that stuff. George says, for what it's worth, don't know if it applies to open source, but I tend to go, I'm not yet comfortable including this in Benthos because I don't yet understand the usability and maintainability implications. Please consider using it in your custom Benthos build. So yeah, I think basically there has definitely been some features where I've just kind of figured this is too niche. I don't understand it. It's quite a lot to bite down on as a maintainer. And therefore, I would rather not merge this in and essentially adopt the support for a particular component. This one could have been in that category because it is quite a complex thing, essentially executing JavaScript. But in actual fact, when I looked at the code base, I figured this is actually fine to adopt. There have definitely been cases in the past, though, where a feature has been proposed or a pull request has been open for something, and I just had to reject it, just thinking this is too much. I have made the mistake of merging some things. And the main one, so that I think of all the headaches of things that I've merged and then regretted afterwards, it was Kinesis support on the input side, because somebody came along with, I don't want to put anybody on the in the hot chair, but basically a pull request that was perfectly fine came along to support Kinesis inputs with checkpointing and load balancing the shards, which is great. That basically puts it on par with Kafka, because we've already got a Kafka input that will do that. You can just use a consumer group. So I was all for it. I thought, oh, brilliant. Okay, this is going to solve the problem. And it was using a third-party library to do that. And I didn't do enough due diligence, and I thought, okay, well, this looks great, and I'll just take it. I didn't think to really dig into the library. This was really early days of Benthos. I think that was probably like our fourth, fifth input. And after merging it, obviously people started using it, and then I started getting issues. I started getting people coming back and saying like, hey, I think this thing is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, or, some of the consumers have stalled, or, this happened, that happened. And I started off by just saying, oh, okay, well, I'm sure the maintainer of that library will, chip in. But the reality is, like, I need to be able to support those things, because only I can guarantee that things get responded to at the rate that I need. And when it comes to bugs in Benthos land, I like to be able to deal with those, unless it's like something very superficial. I want to deal with them that day. And that was definitely always my thinking in the early days, especially, but it's still the case now. If somebody raises a bug and it's a serious issue, then if it's something that I can fix, I'll try and get it fixed as soon as possible. That means within a day or two. But obviously, if something's a problem upstream and I can't necessarily fix it myself, then we get into massive issues. And that was one where a lot of issues were coming up, and I just figured, oh my God, I'm going to have to do something here. So I didn't want to just deprecate it, because it is, unfortunately, Kinesis is an important streaming solution in the data engineering space. So I don't want to just drop it, but I ended up wasting weeks essentially rebuilding the client library to support checkpointing properly, and basically writing in a way where I know that even if I forget how this worked in the future, I'll be able to read it and understand it. We haven't had any issues since, but honestly, that time investment, there's so many other things I could have done instead. And because I've merged it, it kind of basically forced me into a position where I had to put that time. I didn't really have a choice. So yeah, there's definitely cases where, at the end of the day, it's always going to be a judgment call. There's no hard and fast rule on it. You just have to take a glance at things and think, is this something that I can support? There's other dodgy, Parquet is another one as well. The first Parquet support I had for Benthos, I was trying to get it done in a specific window of time, and Benthos, Golang only really had one library, and it looked a bit dodged. The documentation wasn't particularly good, but I figured, well, it's the only thing that we've got, and other people seem to be using it, so it's probably worth the investment. And I really don't think it was. I think I ended up wasting a lot of time on that. And now we've got the yummy new ones based on the segment IO library, and this, I really like this. This one works a lot nicer. It's a lot more intuitive, and the client library just does a lot less odd things, is what I'll say. But yeah, in this case, I think essentially I'm happy to bring this one in, because I think it's going to be pretty cool, just being able to execute JavaScript. But yeah, it's mostly the documentation. Do we have tests? Oh, that was another thing. We need tests. How do we not have tests? Huh. Yeah, okay. That basically puts a spanner in the works. Ah, yeah, MongoDB is another one. Yes, me, hi. Yeah, MongoDB is a nasty one. In terms of the imports that are coming through here, there is some stuff, but I don't know what that is. Some of the massive ones are SQLite. Yeah, there's also the security aspect. Yeah, not much we can do on that front if we're supporting these connectors. I mean, I know that a lot of other projects, they basically make it so that there are no native connectors, essentially. They're all just imports that you can bring in. I feel like, yes, that absolves the Benthos project from the responsibility of maintaining all those things and the security side, but all you're really doing is you're just pushing the responsibility out to the edges. If people still need those components, then somebody's got to do the due diligence. But yeah, I don't really know. I think going forwards, maybe we'll end up with the Benthos version 5 in the end, in some hypothetical future, and it will work kind of like Caddy does, where you have to do a checklist of which dependencies you want to bring in. Which, I mean, actually, we can support that with Benthos version 4. It would just change how people pull in. Actually, yeah, we could do that with version 4. Yeah, I'll have a think about it, because that might be something that we just end up having to do. But yeah, there's definitely pain and suffering with dependencies sometimes. This one seems kind of okay. Don't know why we've got our own regular expression library though. What is this? What is this? Based on the .NET engine. Oh, okay, so this looks like it's kind of like PCRE, where it's got backtracking. I wonder why it's brought this in. Could have a quick look at Gocha. I mean, it looks fairly well maintained. Last commit 2 days ago. Let's do a bit of poking around, a bit of nosying. So this is probably just because in JavaScript you've got to be able to support backtracking. Simple as. Yeah, still no great plugin story. I mean, really, I think the best that we've got is compile time stuff. I mean, one of the major benefits of Golang is that compilation is so stupid fast. So it's really not that big a deal to compile things on the fly. So if you have a tool that just, list which dependency packages you specifically want to bring in and then just makes you a custom build there and then, that's probably only going to take seconds, especially if you've already got the dependencies cached. So I think there's not really a strong need for a good plugin architecture. RPC ones are slow AF and create a load of garbage, so I've always avoided those because somebody will inevitably end up trying to implement a plugin that's basically a hot path, and then scratching their head as to why the performance is bad. But yeah. No good plugin options, and WebAssembly is definitely not it yet. Maybe in the future at some point. But who knows? I honestly, I was like so sure a couple of years ago that WebAssembly was just going to take over everything straight away, and we've gotten to that point where almost everything is solved except the user experience of writing WebAssembly, and it's just not good enough for GoTime. I mean, people can write WebAssembly processors right now, so I mean, if somebody's tried it and they had a really good experience, then let me know, because I'd be very interested in hearing it. Right, next pull request. This one is quite a lot of changes. I've already had a glance at this one. It's quite a lot of changes to MongoDB. Again, we've got the old config format, which means merging this is adding more onto the heap of technical debt. It's not a huge amount because it's fairly easy to translate, but it does mean extra work in the future. I think I might... God, I don't know. Because these components are already... They're pretty big and quite difficult to... No, that's not what I wanted. Quite difficult to wrap your head around. Well, this isn't too bad, I guess. So there's more code in this. To give you some perspective, there's more code in this MongoDB processor than there is in the JavaScript processor. But that's probably not particularly fair because we've got to support lots of different types of operation. And that's most of this. Most of the code base. Yeah, the longer we leave the MongoDB components on the old config APIs, the more of a headache it's going to be to migrate them, unfortunately. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave this one as is just for now. Just when I've got time I can maybe have another look through. Yeah, just a minor thing really, user experience. Benthos documentation should just be, you open up the website and then it click docs and then it's like, just write the code. Whatever you want to do, just write the code that'll do it. This one has just been updated by Lucas, who's already got a few features introduced. This one is basically converting the documentation generation so that it's part of the binary itself, and therefore you can use it as a CLI. I did look at this. There was, God, I can't remember now. I looked at this on my phone when I was out, and there was something that made me think, oh, I can't really remember. I think it's maybe this assumption of what the various paths are for things. Because obviously if you're running this as a CLI argument, it would be nice to be able to specify, kind of like with the list subcommand. We could actually implement this as just another list format. Don't know. It would be nice to get this merged, because then we don't have to have the separate binary. But Benthos already has, this is another issue, Benthos already has a ton of subcommands. We've got echo, lint, streams, list, create, test, template, blobble, studio, and help. I think maybe list. Oh, actually, maybe create. Well, that's Maybe we should give list its own subcommand. Is there not a help for that? Oh, there we go. Oh. Yeah, maybe I should expand this. Yeah, so George is asking, is this outputting all the docs to a folder? If so, that's what that subcommand is doing. The subcommand is basically taking the place of the Benthos docsgen binary that we've got. So we've got a custom binary specifically for that purpose in tools, Benthos docsgen. Yeah, so yeah, that might be, yeah, maybe it is a bit dodgy to have a CLI command that just suddenly generates a whack load of files. So this is why we have so many pull requests. Every single one requires thought. I don't have enough brain to do. I don't have... I don't have enough brain. But yeah, I'm just not entirely sure. Not entirely sure, that's all. I think maybe if it exists, we ought to put it in the list. And then there's the question of whether we should just print the markdown to stand it out by default and then give you a specific flag for writing it to the disk. Yeah, I'm going to sit on this one for a little bit more. What did he just change? Oh. Typo. Okay, right, next one. Add a Redis rate limit. This one looked good. I already had a quick look at this one. So we're creating a beta component. I might mark that as experimental to begin with. A rate limit implementation using Redis. So this would be our first distributed rate limit. Which is a pretty big deal, pretty cool. It works by using a simple token bucket algorithm to limit the number of requests to a given count within a given time period. The rate limit is shared across all instances of Benthos that use the same Redis instance. The only thing that will need a bit of clarification there is that all the instances of Benthos that are using this particular rate limit connecting to this Redis instance will all need to agree on the count and interval. Otherwise, weird stuff will happen, I think. That's probably self-explanatory to most people. We even have tests, which I really like that. I really like when things are tested. So thank you for that, Lucas, if you're in the chat. We've got integration tests and we've got just regular tests, checking the config values. That's cool. Yeah, I'd say this one's pretty much good to go. I'm just going to do a slight modification to clarify that thing, what I just said in the summary, and I'll mark it as experimental. We also need to add the version number of this. Although I've not been particularly good at doing that. So you'll notice in the Benthos docs, quite a lot of components and things have an introduced at version X thing, and that's like a manual thing. When we add new components, we have to manually specify the version that it's going to be introduced in, and that doesn't always work out. Sometimes things slip through the cracks, which is not good. So what we do here, this is interesting. So basically we've got a Redis script, and every time we want to access, we basically just run that script. And is the script stored in Redis? How does that work? Or is it just sent every time we use it? So I'm a little lucky. Oh, that's cool. Huh. I'm just trying to work out if we send that whole thing every time we hit Redis. We're calling run. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so we assume, so we execute the script, which then gets cached along with the SHA hash, and then every single time we run the script, we assume it's already cached, which is the fast way of doing things, and if it's not, it specifically evaluates the whole thing. That's, yeah, it's pretty clean. It's pretty nice. It's nice. Okay, in that case, let's have a look at the rest of it. So the actual thing, what it is doing is we increment the actual key. If we are at 1, then we make sure that we've called expire on the key. So if we're the first thing, if we basically created this key, then we make sure that we set it to expire at the given interval. But if it's actually higher than the number that we're supposed to get, we call pttl, which returns the amount of time we're supposed to wait. And that'll just keep going higher and higher and higher until we've expired. Okay, yeah, it's nice and clean. So we run this script, we check the result. If the result is 0, then we're fine. And if it's not, then we pass that as a duration in milliseconds, which must be specifically what Redis gives us back when we call pttl. And And there you go. That's a bish bash bosh. That's a jobby. That is. I like it. It's nice and simple. Gets the job done. Thank you, Redis, for being awesome. Thank you for Lucas for putting this together. I think that's pretty good. Let's just look at the defaults. So the default of the count is 1,000. The default interval is a second. So 1,000 requests per second. You can also specify the key. You have to specify the key because it doesn't have a default. Oh, we've even got a lint rule. Ensures that the count is greater than or equal to 0. Sorry, it's greater than 0. Otherwise we get the lint error. No, nice. This is actually, it's really clean. It's really nice. I like it. So I think this is good to go. I'm just going to make that ever so minor thing. My first approval of the stream. How long have we been going? We've only been going for like, I don't know, an hour. I can finally just approve fucking pull request. So thanks, looks great. I'm going to do a squash merge because there's 3 commits. I can't merge 3 commits. Ugh. And then what I'll do is pull the latest thing, and what I'll do is if they don't agree, they'll execute different scripts. I suppose nothing will blow up if they disagree on the, which should all have a consistent count and interval. Rather than should, I'm going to put must. Be a bit more authoritative. And the other thing was, I'm going to leave that as experimental and mark the particular version. So this is going to be version 4.12. Coming soon. Coming soon. I might just execute the integration tests right now, just to be sure. Let's do a lint. I like to do git add and then a format, and then just see what the diff is. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's a little slap on the wrist. Sometimes my code is disgusting, and it's better to be made aware and to just blindly format things sometimes. But then unfortunately it does take a while. Linting is a bit slow in Benthos land. So if people wondering on the baby front, baby did stop crying, but baby did not go to sleep. So we had to abandon that nap. Not a total disaster, but you know, we had our own vision of how things would play out, and that's obviously not what happened. But we're not going to dwell on it. We're just going to take the L. Let's just see if the integration tests run. Looking good. I like to do V just to make sure I haven't skipped. Okay, good. Well, that's good. And now let's do a test. Okay, congratulations to Lucas for the first extremely successful pull request on this here stream. Okay, I have not. I'm about to do a commit that says update changelog, and I haven't updated the changelog. I'm aware of that. New Redis rate limit. Like if I merge a pull request and then I just dabble a little bit in the documentation, that's quite often the case because I'm rather pedantic. And obviously the documentation is very, very important in Benthos land, but it's very difficult for developers to do, especially when language barrier is a thing and all that. So I like to not, I don't like to force people to deal with that in a pull request. If it's something minor, if they haven't literally explained what their thing is, then that's obviously a blocker. But if there's just some bits of documentation that I want to add, then I'll often just do that myself because it's not particularly productive to keep going back and forth with people. Not everybody's got a degree in literature, myself included. We're all just winging it. Do I want to fix that? Having said I don't have a degree in literature or English language, do I put a space there or do I not? Because I'm getting told off here with a little blue squiggly line. Well, there's prior art. There's prior art there of rate limit. I'll just leave it as is. Whatever. Okay. So, one pull request down. Next one, add support for primitive object ID types. So this was another one that was very close to being able to merge. Basically, we've got to add a little bit of special source to Bloblang in order to cope with some MongoDB stuff, and some of that is fine because we can specifically add it. Basically, we've got to do BSON stuff. I'm fine adding stuff into the MongoDB internal package because then that import isn't automatic. I'm less comfortable with putting it in the actual base code base because then we're stuck with that MongoDB BSON import, which I don't like. But we do kind of need that, I think, because basically what we're doing is we're allowing people to specify timestamps via the MongoDB primitive thing, whatever it is. I don't even know what it is. But yeah, the idea is that you can extract timestamps from these things. I did add a comment to that effect of, do we actually need this? Because we could potentially add a MongoDB timestamp thing, but yeah, for now this is going to have to stay as it is. I've added some comments, so it'll either get dealt with or I'll sort it out eventually. Add CosmoDB components. This one's got a big fat to do. Was this ready, Mihai? I actually don't know what CosmosDB is. So this is interesting. So this is Azure. And this is quite an old pull request now, I think, isn't it? November, it's not that long, it's not that old. I need to push some changes. Okay, right, we'll leave that one for now. I think I've got energy for one more. Allow XJSON in MongoQuery, so another Mongo one. This is what looked to be a minor change to do with how we CosmosDB is a sad replacement for BigQuery / Snowflake. Got it. So what we're doing here is we're allowing you to use... I don't really know what this does. What does it do? So marshalling the query as a JSON thing, and then we marshal that with a BSON thing again. And that obviously gives us some native types and allows us to use things like this little macro here. That looks fine to me. I think I did I have a question on this? This adds implicit support for object IDs, timestamps, regexes, etc. in queries. This may offer a workaround for blah blah blah. First Golang contribution, feel free to nitpick. I mean, essentially looks fine. I'm surprised this is first Golang being made here because it looked pretty much okay. This has implications that this looks fine and cool. In fact, this looks like it's more in line with more in line with the sort of behavior we should be doing, but because I don't fully understand how this stuff works, I'm a little bit hesitant to make a judgment on this. This looks great. I'm not 100% familiar with the implications of this change, but it looks as though it's a good idea for usability. If someone else with more experience with MongoDB can chime in, I'm mostly concerned about backwards compatibility, but if that's not an issue, I'm happy to merge. I was maybe going to put a smiley face there, but I think not. Smiley faces, what? Sometimes smiley faces are great and people love them and we're all happy and we all can live together in harmony. Sometimes people think smiley faces are really patronizing, and I'm one of those people. I find smiley faces just look really... I know, I don't assume everybody's being patronizing, but it just looks to me it looks sarcastic. It looks like when people make a smiley. Good pull request. Good pull request. Looks a bit sarcastic to me, but maybe that's because I'm a Brit. So yeah, I often hold back. I hold back on smiley faces even when maybe they would be well received. Hey, blah, blah, this looks great. Bit of encouragement because it does look pretty great. Not 100% familiar with the implications of the change, but it looks as though it's a good idea for usability. If somebody else with more experience with MongoDB can tell me, I'm mostly concerned about backwards compatibility, but that's what? But if that's not an issue, I'm happy to merge. I'll just leave that as a comment. Hopefully, somebody with a bit of experience can chime in there. So now we're getting to pull requests that are 3 weeks old. That's not that old, but still a lot older than I would like, especially if it's things that are fairly straightforward to merge. This is a brand new input using the new APIs, which is great. That's a great start. And ba ba da ba 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 da 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 da. Ha ha ha. Build raw BQ query. Input BigQuery raw. Response it raw. Oh no, I'm not going to do column. I'm not doing column. That's for in private. Yeah, okay, this is probably very similar to the SQL raw, and it looks as though it follows the same structure. So this here is possibly a leak. Technically it's not, because close always gets caught, but I'm surprised the linter didn't pick up on that actually. Because this is a context with cancellation being returned, so there is a go routine that gets spawned here. So if we don't explicitly close that under all circumstances, then potentially that's a naughty. That's naughty. But it's not a big deal. Create a new client, blah blah da. So we have not got any tests for this, which is a problem. Not entirely sure how feasible it would be to have tests for this. This is GCP BigQuery. We do have some integration tests, but oh yeah, because we use the mock. Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll see if this author has time to add tests. Yeah, just going to ask for tests for that one. This is a work in progress one. Using pub/sub notifications for Google Cloud Storage. Ah, yes, this is, yes. That's one. I think we talked about this on Discord as well. Might as well run the workflows. I trust you. Yeah, unfortunately this has to use the old... Yeah, okay, we even talked about this in the last Blob Talk session. I was going to refactor this component to use the new config APIs, because this is quite a big change. So it would be ideally not merged as is. We'll use the new things. It's quite a simple struct beforehand. Yeah, I think this one's just going to get blocked on me refactoring that particular component. Enable Nacos. Okay, this is going to be the last one now. I'm just going to have a look at this one. This was massive. If I remember, I had a glance at this. I was like, "Oh, I need to allocate time for this one." Enable Nacos Service Registry. So enable to register stuff to Nacos Service Registry Center. I've never heard of Nacos. I don't really know what that is, but I'm assuming it's like StatsD or something. Better collect service metrics with running in Docker mode or for more functions and features. So this is adding like a whole, almost looks like a whole new component type. And a whole new config struct. So it would definitely not get merged as is. We'd need to rework this to use new config types. So this looks like it's something where we Yeah, I don't think this is something that I'm likely to want to merge as is. Can maybe add some sort of ability to do whatever this is doing, but I'm more than halfway through the pull request and I have no idea why you would want to do this, what the value is. I don't know what Narcos does. I mean, who knows? Maybe you register your service and then somebody comes and shoots your dog. Thank you for registering with Narcos. I will now be taking all the food from your pantry. Thank you for registering with Narcos. Ba-da-ba-ba. I think that's a fair response. Basically, hey, I'm not sure I understand what the value of this feature is. Could this potentially be something that custom builds implement rather than a feature within the main distribution of Benthos? Basically, this is me very politely asking, can I not? Can I just not do that? Add interpolated field. I set up that was going to be the last one, and I've just clicked another one, so I'm going to have to do this. More akin to console. So what sort of thing would it be for? Would that be so that you could just like spawn random Benthos HTTP servers, for example, and they'd all register so you know what the IP addresses are? Because that might be kind of useful, but that's almost more of a component specific, because you could have an input and an output that are both HTTP servers with different port bindings, for example. And they would each need to individually register. Makes it very complicated. Oh, that might be pretty cool, but maybe specific to the component rather than for the whole service. Yeah, sidecar seems more sensible. Well, I'll see what they say. I'll leave it as is for now. Right, this one's cool. Alex C, Alex Carp. In this PRS, what for interpolated fields in the blah blah blah. What does this do? Okay, so this looks like it is working in a backwards compatible way. But one benefit of the recent refactoring I did is we don't actually have to care about backwards compatibility, so where does that get signed to? Okay, this implementation looks fine. Basically, what we do . Huh. I think what probably makes sense is to keep RecSigner as this generic, all-encompassing thing that does the request signing, but then add all this logic in there, and when we do the request signage, we give it the... Because the problem with that is that we need all this dynamic stuff to be resolved with the actual message. So we do this in order to generate the claims. So it's all dynamic based on the reference message. I think it probably makes sense to push this through the signer, which we can just do. We don't have to worry about backwards compatibility because I don't care, because it's only internal stuff anyway. So when we create a new signer, that would mean we pass it the manager that gives it the Bloblang execution environment. Huh. Hey guys, thanks for Benthos. It's a very cool project. Thank you. Have you got a project to add an output to GraphQL? Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, that's true. So you can form. Technically, you could hit a GraphQL endpoint with the HTTP client output, because you can send arbitrary data. So you could use a mapping or something to produce a GraphQL request. But obviously that's not a particularly nice user experience because you have to build the structure itself. There's probably a way that we could make it easier. So for example, you could structure like an arbitrary JSON object and then have that converted into a GraphQL object. So I don't think the two are compatible. Maybe they are? No, I don't think they're compatible. It's different things. So yeah. We could potentially add plugins for that sort of stuff. Maybe add an issue for it and we can kind of evaluate how much interest there is in that sort of stuff. I can hear baby making moves, so I'm going to have to go and deal with that. I'm just going to give a quick answer to Alex. Okay, let me read this out so I can see if it sounds reasonable. Hey, thanks, Alex. This looks great. These components are all internal now, so I'm happy to rework the request signer so that the constructor is passed a manager in order to access the Bloblang environment and create the mappings that are needed for the dynamic behavior. and that the sign function has provided a reference message, because obviously you need the message at the time when you're signing the HTTP request. I think it'd make the code base a bit cleaner, as we'd avoid the fork in logic at the HTTP component side. So rather than the HTTP component thinking, oh no, I've got to do this other thing, I've got to sign this other way, and then do all the dynamic stuff, it would all just be handled within the request signer. And then I do this a lot with pull requests. I basically just follow it with, if you're happy to make, because that's quite a big ask to basically just refactor your pull request essentially. I know it's not a massive pull request, but it's asking somebody, you know, a fair chunk of their time, probably the same amount of time that they initially took to implement it in the first place. So when I make an ask like that, because technically they've done their bit, they've added in an implementation that works. I usually kind of try and meet them halfway. So if they're happy to do it, then, you know, let me know and I'll wait. Otherwise, the next time I get a chance and I feel like coming back on this one, then I'll rework at that point, because it'll probably only take me a few minutes. So I'm happy to do that sort of stuff. I'm not like, it's not as if I'm going to need to refactor like a massive component and all the configuration fields. This is just a bit of reworking, mostly deletions. So I'll be happy to do that. Right, that is it for pull requests. I started with 31 pull requests with the goal of reducing that number. And I'm really sorry to say that Mihai exists. And what he's gone and done is the one pull request I managed to merge, he has negated by the cheeky bastard. He's opened another pull request. I don't know what to say to that. It's an easy one though, shall I just do it? I'm also nowhere near. There's a bunch of really cool ones. Some optimizations by Steve. Stuff from George. There's some Bloblang stuff from Mark. Like, there's lots of exciting stuff the further you go up here, and I just haven't quite gotten that far yet. Unfortunately. But soon I will also get to Jeremy's, because Jeremy's is going to be cool. This is like a rework of Nat stuff. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to... I don't have time to properly look at this one, but I will give it a little... I'll give it a rocket. And we'll give him a good roast on the next stream. How about that? We'll do a good old roast for Jeremy if we get that far on the next stream. Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm not merging your pull request right now, Mihai. Actually, this is actually a big deal, isn't it? This is going to stop people from being able to do builds. Ah! You strong-armed me. You strong-armed me, Mihai. Oh, I'm going to have to yield and merge this one. I'll go on then. Just gonna come and go away. Oh no, I'm not doing a squash. Okay, now we're back down to 30. Okay, congratulations me. Thank you all for watching this fantastic progress I've made. 2 hours, I managed to get 1 fewer pull request. I feel really good about that. Next time, I think what I'm going to do is No! Okay, I need to end the stream before he opens another pull request. I think on the next one, I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to, rather than starting right at the oldest ones, they're the oldest ones for a reason, that they're a bit more hardcore, need a bit more work and attention. I'm going to start from the opposite direction and see if we can get a bit more progress that way. because there's definitely low hanging fruit. There's loads of these pull requests I can merge pretty quickly, but I just didn't do it that way this time. So what can you do to help? Like and subscribe, you fucking scumbag, if you haven't already. Get me to 1,000 subs, please. I've already got the content. I already made the celebration video for reaching 1,000, and I made it when I was at like 800 subs. And it's sad as fuck me just sitting on that and not being able to publish it. So please help me, please help. And other ways that you can help. So if you're just wondering, well, what can I get involved with? If you're just, let's say you don't know any code whatsoever, you're just a Benthos user, you don't know what code is, then you can still help just by, so some of these pull requests are for features that are, they're quite vast. It's like documentation, all sorts of stuff getting involved, and potentially new features and things. So if that's something that you kind of understand in the Benthos world, so like, if you understand how JSON web tokens work and you use the HTTP components in Benthos, for example, if you see pull requests that are kind of in that space and you think, oh, I'm versed, not particularly well versed, but I am versed in that kind of area, then one really useful thing is to just chime in on whether you actually understand what the pull request is for. Because if the pull request is introducing features that, should be something that you might be interested in, then if you can't understand what the feature is for in the pull request, then that's definitely something that we should identify nice and early, because all of this stuff should be user friendly. That's the whole point of merging it. So yeah, basically it helps me out sometimes as well, because I might not understand what the pull request is for, so I'm going to have to go and do some reading up. So if I come to a pull request and it's already been the case that somebody has chimed in and said, hey, what does this actually do? What is this for? And then the author has answered that, and there's a bit of dialogue, that often helps me out as well. I don't have to go and Google dig around for all that information. Which video do you want to publish on your channel? All my channels are in dumb English. Don't worry about it. You're already doing a massive solid by posting your videos on just Benthos in general. Just keep doing that. Keep doing your tutorials. They're looking really cool. I don't understand them obviously, but yeah, they're really cool. Thank you for doing that. You're doing enough. It's all the other scumbags. It's all the other wastes of life. Filth. Right, that's it for this one. I think the next stream, I'm probably going to be doing the same thing. I'm just going to be doing pull requests, so definitely check out that. It's going to be well fun. Maybe we'll get 2 done. Or I'll just never come back. If Mihai's opened like 20 pull requests by then, I'm just going to... If I hit 50 pull requests that are open and half of them are Mihai, I'm just quitting the project for life. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and you can stop watching now.